Hello everybody. Welcome to Dialogues for Change. Life is not a void to be filled. It is a plenitude to be discovered. Today I would like to share with you some thoughts about someone I like very much, who is Mulla Nasrudin, hero of many jokes, and jokes actually who are also wisdom stories. And in his book The Sufis, Idries Shah actually gives us a little background information or puts into context these stories that are teaching stories. So I would like to read you some of his thoughts on Mulla Nasruddin, starting on pages 62 and following. People do not know where to look when they are seeking enlightenment. As a result, it is hardly surprising that they may attach themselves to any cult, immerse themselves in all manner of theories, believing that they have the capacity to distinguish the true from the false. Nasruddin taught this in several ways. On one occasion, a neighbor found him down on his knees looking for something. "What have you lost, Mullah?" "My key," said Nasruddin. After a few minutes of searching, the other man said, "Where did you drop it?" "Oh, at home." "Then why for heaven's sake are you looking here? There is more light here." This is one of the most famous of all Nasruddin tales, used by many Sufis commenting upon people who seek exotic sources for enlightenment. Acting it on the stage was a part of the repertoire of Karl Valentin, the late metaphysical clown of Munich. The mechanism of rationalization is one which effectively bars the deepening of perception. The Sufic impact may often be wasted because the individual will not properly absorb it. A neighbor came to borrow Nasruddin's clothesline. "I'm sorry, but I'm drying flour on it." "But how can you dry flour on a line?" "Oh, it is less difficult than you think when you don't want to lend it." Nasruddin here presents himself as the evasive part of the mind, which will not accept that there are other ways of approaching truth than conventional patterns. In the development of the human mind, there is a constant change and limit to the usefulness of any particular technique. This characteristic of Sufi practice is ignored in repetitious systems, which condition the mind and create an atmosphere of attainment or nearness to attainment without actually producing it. Nasruddin figures as the character in a story which seeks to make this clear. The mullah nearly fell into a pool of water. A passerby saved him in the nick of time. Every time they met in the future, the man reminded Nasruddin about how he had prevented him from getting wet. Ultimately, unable to stand it any longer, the mullah took his friend to the pool, jumped in as far as the neck and shouted, "Now I am as wet as I would have been if I had never met you. Will you leave me alone?" The ordinary joke or fable containing only one point or emphasis cannot be compared to the Nasruddin system, ideally a participation recital which exercises an inward as well as an outward or superficial effect. The parable, fable, and ordinary joke are considered mystically sterile because they lack penetration or true regenerative force. While the complex ingenuity and intention of the Nasruddin story is far ahead of, say, the Baldachev figure of the Russians, the Arab Joha or Bertoldo of the Italians, all well-known comical figures, something of the difference of depth in stories can be assessed by means of the mullah's jokes and their equivalent in their sporadic occurrence elsewhere. The Zen story provides an interesting example. In this, a monk asks a master to give him a version of the reality beyond reality. The master snatches up a rotten apple, and the monk perceives the truth by means of this sign. We are left in the dark as to what lies behind or leads up to the illumination. The Nasruddin story about an apple fills in a great deal of missing detail. Nasruddin is sitting among a circle of disciples when one of them asks him the relationship between things of this world and things of a different dimension. Nasruddin says, "You must understand allegory." The disciple says, "Show me something practical. For instance, an apple from paradise." Nasruddin picks up an apple and hands it to the man. And this apple is bad on one side. Surely a heavenly apple would be perfect. A celestial apple would be perfect, says Nasruddin. But as far as you are able to judge it, situated as we are in this abode of corruption, and with your present faculties, this is as near to a heavenly apple as you will ever get. The disciple understood that the terms which we use for metaphysical things are based upon physical terms. In order to penetrate in other dimension of cognition, we have to adjust to the way of understanding of that dimension. The Nasruddin story, which may well be the original of the apple allegory, is designed to add to the mind of the hearer something of the flavor which is needed to build up the consciousness for experiences which cannot be reached until a bridge has been created. This gradual building up of inner consciousness is characteristic of the Nasruddin Sufi method. The flash of intuitive illumination which comes as a result of the stories is partly a minor enlightenment in itself. It is not an intellectual experience. It is also a stepping stone toward the re-establishing of mystical perception in a captive mind, relentlessly conditioned by the training systems of material life. I hope this little putting into perspective of Nasruddin stories by Idries Shah in the Sufis has opened up even more enjoyment possibility, enlightened enjoyment possibilities when you hear some Mulla Nasruddin stories in the future. I hope you all enjoyed these little inspirations on Tuesday, the 20th of December 2012. Good dialogue of change, inspirations to all of you. Thank you.